Good morning. My name is Amelia Thompson. For 32 years, I've lived a life of unwavering purpose, a journey from a small town to the towering spires of New York City, where I now stand as a successful attorney. Yet, for all my professional triumphs, there has always been a single, constant ache in my heart, the desperate, unfulfilled desire for my parents' approval. A desire so powerful, so profound, that it led me to a moment of public, agonizing betrayal. This is the story of how I tried to bridge a chasm with a $25,000 party and was met not with gratitude, but with the cold, cutting words from my own mother. "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." If you've ever felt like an outcast in your own family, like your accomplishments were never quite enough, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your story deserves to be heard, and we are a community that understands. Now, let's talk about my family and the betrayal that changed everything. I've always been the black sheep. I left our small town of Cedar Creek, Connecticut, for the ambitious, unforgiving world of law in New York City. My older sister, Sarah, was the golden child. She stayed, married her high school sweetheart Mark, and gave my parents 3 perfect grandchildren. She fulfilled the life script my parents, Robert and Carol, had written for both of us. The difference in how we were treated was a silent, constant presence in my life. When I won a regional piano competition at 10, my parents missed it because Sarah had a minor cold. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, my mother spent the entire ceremony reminiscing about how Sarah, a salutatorian, had achieved the same honor 4 years earlier. My achievements were minimized, my failures magnified. The phrase, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became the relentless soundtrack of my youth. The final rupture came when I announced my decision to go to law school. My father, with a voice thick with disapproval, called it a betrayal. "We raised you to be a part of this community," he said, as if my aspirations were a personal attack. My mother was even more direct. "You are choosing to abandon your family." But I had to go. Cedar Creek was suffocating me with its small-town politics and even smaller expectations. I knew there was a bigger world out there, and I was determined to conquer it. Even after I left, I tried to maintain a connection, to build a bridge across the miles and the years. I sent lavish gifts, made uncomfortable holiday visits, and even provided a substantial financial lifeline when my father's hardware store struggled. A $20,000 loan that was never fully acknowledged. My desperate hope, though it should have died, stubbornly persisted. Surely, there was a way to make them see me, to make them proud. Then, a few months ago, a discovery on social media sent a jolt of determination through me. A post from Sarah mentioned my parents' upcoming 35th wedding anniversary. I was stunned. No one had mentioned this milestone to me. Instead of the anger I expected to feel, a fierce resolve ignited within me. This would be my grand gesture. The thing that would finally shatter the walls between us. I would throw them the anniversary party of their dreams. I called Sarah immediately, my voice brimming with an excitement I hadn't felt in years. To my surprise, she was enthusiastic. "That would be amazing, Amelia," she said. "They would never expect something like this." We spent hours on the phone, discussing everything from the venue to the menu. Sarah insisted that I should be the one to pay for it all. "You can afford it," she said, her voice a little too eager, "and it would mean so much to them, coming from you." In my naive hope for reconciliation, I failed to hear the warning bells. Sarah promised to keep the party a secret. "It will be the perfect surprise gift," she said. I hung up the phone, feeling more hopeful than I had in years. Finally, I had found a way to show them how much they meant to me. Finally, I would be the daughter they wanted. I could not have imagined how completely that hope would be shattered, or how public the humiliation would be when I stood on their doorstep, uninvited to the very party I had paid for. Planning the perfect anniversary party became my obsession. I was determined to create an event that would make my parents not just happy, but proud. My heart swelled with the thought of them seeing the love and dedication I was pouring into every detail. After several lengthy discussions with Sarah, we decided on the Lakeside Manor, a stunning Victorian villa that overlooked Cedar Lake. My mother had once wistfully mentioned how she had always dreamed of an event there, calling it something out of a romance novel. The rental fee was steep, $8,000, but I didn't hesitate. This was my chance to finally do something right in their eyes. Next, we arranged for catering from their favorite Italian restaurant, Giovanni's. The bill alone came to $6,000, but I knew my parents would appreciate the authentic flavors and premium ingredients. I hired a professional photographer, a string quartet for background music, and a local florist who created breathtaking arrangements of white roses and lilies, my mother's favorites. I even arranged for a custom, tiered masterpiece of a cake, topped with a replica of their original wedding topper. The total cost quickly mounted to $25,000, practically emptying my savings account. But I convinced myself it was worth it. Throughout the planning process, I had regular calls with Sarah. She was my eyes and ears on the ground, ensuring everything went smoothly while keeping the party a surprise. But as the weeks progressed, I began to notice troubling signs. Sarah became increasingly difficult to reach, and when I asked to see the guest list, she became strangely defensive. "I have it under control," she insisted. "You don't need to micromanage everything from New York." Her tone hurt me, but I backed off. I didn't want to create tension when we were finally working together on something meaningful. My uneasiness grew when I noticed that Sarah had created a Facebook event for the party, but hadn't added me to it. When I mentioned it, she claimed it was an oversight and promptly added me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. 2 weeks before the party, I still hadn't received a detailed schedule or confirmation of all the arrangements. My calls to the event planner, a woman named Jacqueline, went straight to voicemail, and her emails became increasingly brief. "All proceeding as planned," she wrote in response to my list of questions. "Sarah has provided all necessary instructions." That's when the knot of anxiety in my stomach tightened. Why was Jacqueline taking instructions from Sarah when I was the one paying for everything? I tried calling Sarah again, but she texted me back, "Super busy with party prep. I'll call tomorrow." But tomorrow came and went without a call. My instincts were screaming that something was very wrong, but I kept pushing those thoughts away. This was my sister. Surely, she would not sabotage something this important. I decided to fly to Cedar Creek a day earlier than planned, ostensibly to help with last-minute preparations, but really to see for myself what was happening. I arrived in my hometown, a place that hadn't changed much in the decade I'd been gone. It was both comforting and suffocating, a physical reminder of why I had left and why a part of me had always longed to return. I checked into a small hotel and prepared for whatever would come next. Little did I know, the truth would be far more painful than even my worst suspicions. The morning after I arrived, I went to a local coffee shop where I used to study in high school. I had just ordered my latte when I heard someone call my name. I turned to see my former English teacher, Eleanor Davies, approaching with a wide smile. "Amelia Thompson! What a surprise to see you back in town. Are you here for your parents' anniversary party tomorrow night?" I nodded, forcing a smile. She looked at me curiously. "I was surprised not to see your name on the invitation. I assumed you were too busy with your big city law career to attend." My heart sank. "What do you mean my name wasn't on the invitation?" Mrs. Davies frowned slightly. "The invitation said the party was being hosted by Sarah and your parents. I just assumed." I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. I hurried out of the cafe, my coffee forgotten. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and found the Facebook event for the party. There, in elegant script, it was described as a celebration, lovingly organized by their daughter, Sarah. The comments were filled with praise for Sarah's generosity. My name was conspicuously absent from the guest list. I had been removed from the very party I was paying for. In a daze, I walked back to my hotel and opened my laptop. I pulled up my email correspondence with Jacqueline, the event planner. All the contracts were in my name. All the payments had come from my account. When I finally reached Jacqueline on the phone, she confirmed my worst fears. "Sarah told me you wanted her to be the official host, since you couldn't be here in person," she said. She said you were disappointed, but had arranged this as your gift since you couldn't be here. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment, I couldn't speak. My own sister had systematically erased me from an event I had conceived and paid for, positioning herself as the generous, devoted daughter, while painting me as the absent, career-obsessed one who couldn't be bothered to attend. I ended the call, and then I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called my sister and demanded answers. "What are you talking about?" she said, feigning ignorance. "Don't play dumb, Sarah. I'm in Cedar Creek. I've seen the invitation. I know what you did." The facade crumbled instantly. "You don't understand," she whined. "Mom and Dad would appreciate this more coming from me. You know how they are. So, you just decided to steal my idea and my money to pretend this was all you're doing. To explicitly uninvite me from the party I'm funding." I asked, my voice cold. "I didn't uninvite you," she protested weakly. "I just didn't include you in the guest list. There's a difference. A difference that means I wouldn't be there to contradict your story of being the perfect, generous daughter," I replied, the pieces falling into place. This was never about giving our parents a wonderful anniversary. This was about you getting the credit, the praise, the gratitude. "As always, that's not fair," she snapped. "I did most of the actual work. All you did was write a check. Anyone can do that." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "A $25,000 check, Sarah. Money I saved for years. Money I earned working 80-hour weeks while you were posting pictures of your perfect family life on Facebook. You always have to bring money into it," she said. "Just because you chose a soulless career that pays well doesn't make you better than me." Better than you. I almost laughed. My entire life has been spent being told I'm not as good as you, and now you've stolen the one thing I tried to do to finally earn their approval. "They're my parents too," she said, petulantly. "And I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who gives them grandchildren. I'm the one who takes care of them when they need something. And I'm the one who pays for it all," I replied quietly. "The emergency roof repair last year, Dad's medical bills when his insurance wouldn't cover that specialist, the down payment on their new car. Who do you think funded all of that, Sarah?" There was silence on the other end of the line. I ended the call without another word, my mind reeling. My own parents, who must have known where the money for such an elaborate party was coming from, had chosen, as they always did, to believe the narrative that cast Sarah as the hero and me as the absent failure. As I sat in my hotel room, I made a decision. I would not slink away in defeat. This time I would not accept being erased and replaced yet again. No, this time I would show up. Uninvited, unwanted, but unmistakably present. It was time to force my family to face the truth they had been denying for decades. Tomorrow night I would crash my own party. The day of the anniversary party arrived with a frustrating slowness. I spent the morning and afternoon in a state of anxious anticipation, alternating between certainty about my decision to attend and crushing doubt. But then I would remember the invitation that deliberately excluded me, the Facebook event listing my sister as the generous host, and the $25,000 of my money being used to fund a celebration I was not welcome to attend, and my resolve would harden once again. I spent extra time getting ready, determined to look my absolute best. I put on my favorite emerald green silk dress, styled my hair in loose waves, and put on the pearl earrings that had been a gift from my grandmother. The only family member who had ever seemed to truly see and accept me. As I stood in front of the mirror, I barely recognized the poised, elegant woman looking back at me. Gone was the eager, to please daughter, desperately seeking approval. In her place was a successful attorney who knew her worth and was not afraid to stand up for herself. I decided to arrive at the Lakeside Manor at 8 o'clock, when things would be in full swing. The drive felt surreal. I parked my rental car at the far end of the lot, giving myself a moment to gather my courage. Through the large windows, I could see the party in progress. The sparkling lights, the floral arrangements, the string quartet. It was all exactly as I had specified. And there, in the center of it all, were my parents, looking happier than I had seen them in years. Next to them stood Sarah, playing her role perfectly, graciously accepting compliments on her generosity. For a moment, watching them, I almost turned back, but then I remembered all the years of emotional neglect, the constant comparisons, and I knew I couldn't walk away. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked through the doors. The reaction was immediate. Conversations faltered. Guests who recognized me looked confused, some openly hostile. I moved through the crowd with deliberate steps, feeling the weight of every stare. I heard the whispers. "What is she doing here? I thought she couldn't make it. Did Sarah know she was coming?" And then, I was standing in front of them, my parents and Sarah. My mother's face shifted from confusion to displeasure. My father looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Only Sarah seemed unsurprised, though her face paled considerably. "Amelia," my mother said, her voice carrying that familiar note of disapproval. "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." The words hung in the air, a public rejection that silenced the nearby conversations. "I know," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the pain. "I found that odd considering I paid for all of this." My mother blinked, confusion momentarily replacing her coldness. "What are you talking about?" "The venue, the food, the music, the flowers, all of it. $25,000 from my account." Did Sarah not mention that detail when she was taking credit for arranging this celebration? My father finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Is this true, Sarah?" he asked, turning to my sister. Sarah's face flushed. "It's not like that," she stammered. "Amelia offered to help with the costs, but the whole thing was my idea. I did all the work." "That is a lie," I said quietly, but firmly. "I conceived of this party, contacted the venue, and paid for everything. Sarah was supposed to be helping me surprise you, not stealing the credit and excluding me from the guest list." "You're just jealous," Sarah snapped, abandoning any pretense of civility. "You couldn't stand the thought of me doing something nice for Mom and Dad, so now you're trying to ruin it." "If that were true," I replied evenly, "why is my name on every contract? Why did all the payments come from my account? Why did the event planner think I couldn't attend because I was too busy with work, not because I was deliberately uninvited by my own sister?" A murmur ran through the watching crowd. This was turning into exactly the kind of public confrontation I had both feared and, on some level, wanted. The truth was finally coming out. My mother, ever concerned with appearances, tried to regain control. "This is not the time or place for this discussion, Amelia. You are causing a scene at our anniversary celebration." "The celebration I paid for," I reminded her. "The one you apparently knew I was funding, but still chose to exclude me from." "We didn't know," my father interjected. "Sarah told us she had been saving for months to give us this party." "Did they actually believe that?" I asked, looking at my sister. "That you somehow managed to save $25,000 on a teacher's salary while raising 3 kids?" "You are not welcome here," my mother interrupted, her voice cold and final. "You are not going to ruin our special day with your accusations and your drama. Please leave." "Amelia." I stood there, surrounded by people who had known me my entire life, being publicly rejected by my own mother at an event I had poured my heart and finances into. The humiliation was complete, the pain almost unbearable, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Instead, I straightened my shoulders, met my mother's cold gaze, and said simply, "Understood." Then I turned and walked out of the lakeside manor, my head held high despite the tears threatening to spill from my eyes. I had wanted so desperately for this night to bring healing and reconciliation. Instead, it had only confirmed what I had always known but tried to deny. In my family's eyes, I would never be enough, never be worthy, never truly be one of them. As I stepped into the cool night air, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of seeking approval from people who were incapable of giving, it suddenly seemed like a fool's errand. I was done proving myself. Done seeking validation from people who had shown time and again that they were not capable of seeing my worth. It was time to stop being a victim of my family's narrative. It was time to take control of my own story, and as I walked to my car, a plan began to form in my mind. I sat in my rental car, hands gripping the steering wheel. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. The humiliation of being thrown out of the party I had paid for burned through me, a white, hot flame of indignation that slowly crystallized into resolve. For 32 years, I had been the victim in my family's story. But I was not that scared little girl anymore. I was a woman who had built a successful life on her own terms, and I had one power they could not take away from me: the power of my own money. The very thing Sarah and my parents had been happy to take advantage of while continuing to reject me. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. With a few taps, I marked the final payment of $15,000 to the Lakeside Manor as disputed, and blocked any further withdrawals. Then I called Jacqueline, the event planner. "I have just been thrown out of my parents' anniversary party by my mother and sister," I said. "I am disputing the final payment for tonight's event. The initial deposit of $10,000 is all you will be receiving." Jacqueline was sympathetic but professional. I gave her a simple instruction. If my parents or sister didn't arrange for alternative payment within the next 30 minutes, the services would need to conclude early. I felt no joy in what I had done, only a grim satisfaction at finally standing up for myself. This was not about revenge, it was about refusing to be a doormat any longer. I started the car and drove to the lake house, a small bar a mile from the venue. I had just ordered a martini when my phone rang. My father's name flashed on the screen. "Amelia," he said, his voice tight with anger. "What have you done?" "The caterers are threatening to pack up the food. The bar has stopped serving drinks. The musicians are asking when they will be paid." "That sounds stressful," I acknowledged. "Perhaps Sarah can cover the costs since she was so eager to take credit for the party." "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. "You know she can't afford this. How could you do this to us? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" "Actually, I do know exactly how embarrassing this is," I replied. "I experienced it firsthand when my own mother told me I wasn't welcome at an event I conceived and paid for." I heard my mother's voice in the background, demanding the phone. "How dare you?" she screeched into the receiver. "How dare you expect to be treated with basic respect by my own family? How dare I object to being publicly humiliated and thrown out of an event I paid $25,000 for? How dare I finally stand up for myself after decades of being treated like I am worth less than Sarah? This party was supposed to be my gift to you, a gesture of love and reconciliation. And you and Sarah turned it into yet another opportunity to reject and humiliate me. So yes, I am withdrawing my financial support." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "What do you want, Amelia?" My father's voice returned, sounding tired. "What I want," I said slowly, "is for you both to acknowledge what has happened here. I want Sarah to admit to everyone that this party was my idea and my money, not hers. I want you to recognize that I have been trying to win your approval my entire life, while you have consistently favored my sister, and I want a genuine apology, not for how I felt, but for how I was treated." "That is not going to happen," my mother said, her voice cold and final. "You can either release the funds or be responsible for ruining this evening for everyone." I closed my eyes, absorbing the reality that even now, faced with the consequences of their actions, my parents were incapable of seeing their part in this dysfunctional dynamic. "Then I guess we all have to live with our choices," I said quietly. I ended the call, turned off my phone, and ordered another martini. For the first time in my adult life, I had stood up to my family. I had refused to play the role they had assigned me. It didn't feel like a victory, there was too much sadness for that. But it did feel like the first step towards something new. In a small town like Cedar Creek, news travels fast. By the next morning, everyone knew what had happened. The abrupt end to the festivities, the hurried explanations, and most dramatically, the revelation that the party had been funded by the estranged daughter who had been publicly turned away at the door. I woke up in my hotel room to find my phone flooded with messages. Most were from my family, ranging from angry demands to tearful pleas. I deleted those without reading them. But there were others, from distant relatives and old high school classmates, expressing shock, support, and curiosity. "Just heard what happened. That was savage. But honestly, they had it coming, wrote my cousin. Another message read, "The whole town is talking about last night. Team Amelia all the way." I sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through the messages with a strange sense of detachment. For so long, I had worried about what these people thought of me. Now I found I didn't particularly care. Their opinions, positive or negative, no longer defined me. Just as I was finishing my coffee, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Evelyn, my mother's younger sister, standing in the hallway. "We need to talk," she said. Aunt Evelyn had always been kind to me, but she had never intervened in the family dynamics. She sat down and explained that my mother's marriage to my father had been arranged, that she had given up her own dreams to conform to the life her family expected. When I came along, a bright, independent spirit determined to forge my own path, I was a painful reminder of everything she had sacrificed. My mother had resented me for having the courage to do what she could not. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it did provide a context that made it slightly less personal. "The problem was never really about you," Aunt Evelyn said. "It was always about them. About your mother's regrets and your father's complicity in maintaining the family dynamic that kept her trapped." I decided to extend my stay for one more day. There were still conversations to be had. I met with Sarah at a small park. She looked smaller and more vulnerable than I could remember. "I'm sorry," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "What I did was wrong. Taking credit for your party, excluding you from the guest list, lying to Mom and Dad, it was all wrong." "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Because I was jealous," she admitted. "You have this amazing career, this glamorous life in New York. You make more money in a month than I do in a year. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in Cedar Creek teaching third grade and raising 3 kids on a tight budget. When you suggested this lavish party, something I could never afford to give them, I just snapped." "So, you stole it," I said bluntly. "Yes," she whispered. And then it spiraled out of control. She admitted that our parents had suspected the truth, but chose to believe her lie, because it was easier than accepting my generosity. "You know how they are, especially Mom," she said. "She's spent so many years casting you as the villain in her story. She can't see you any other way." I didn't commit to anything that day, but I did agree to one more conversation before leaving town. A conversation with all of them, my parents and Sarah together. We met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. The conversation was difficult, painful, but beneath it all, there was something new, a reluctant acknowledgement that they had treated me unfairly throughout my life. My mother finally admitted, "I don't understand you, Amelia. I never have. You were always so determined, so sure of what you wanted. I never had that luxury." It was as close as she would come to an apology. My father, in a rare moment of insight, added, "We failed at that with both of you in different ways." It was not a perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning, a crack in the facade of denial that had defined our family for as long as I could remember. I left town carrying with me, not the healing I had hoped for, but something perhaps more valuable, a clear-eyed understanding of my family, of myself, and of the boundaries I would need to maintain going forward. The journey to reconciliation did not happen overnight. For weeks there was very little communication. But slowly, connections began to rebuild. I made it clear that I would no longer accept being treated as less than Sarah or having my achievements diminished. "I love you both," I told them. "But I will not keep trying to earn something that should have been given freely." My mother struggled with these new boundaries, but eventually, she began to respect them. I also began to invest more intentionally in my chosen family, the friends and colleagues who had supported me without conditions or competitions. These connections, based on mutual respect and genuine affection, reminded me that I was worthy of love exactly as I was. They helped fill the void that my family's conditional acceptance had created. 4 months after the anniversary party debacle, I received an unexpected invitation. My parents wanted me to join them and Sarah for a weekend at a lake house rental, a neutral location where we could spend time together without the weight of Cedar Creek memories. With the safeguards of my therapist in mind, I agreed. The weekend wasn't perfect, but there were glimpses of something new. My father asking thoughtful questions about my work, my mother complimenting my handling of a difficult conversation without adding a comparison to Sarah. Sarah herself sharing her struggles with parenthood without framing it as a sacrifice I had selfishly avoided. Small steps, but significant ones. 6 months after the party, we gathered again, this time for Thanksgiving. I hosted in my New York apartment, the first time my parents had visited my home in nearly 5 years. As we sat around my dining table, I realized something profound. I no longer needed their validation. The desperate longing that had driven me to spend $25,000 on an anniversary party had been replaced by a calm self-assurance. I knew who I was, and I was at peace with that knowledge. The most valuable lesson from this journey has been understanding the true nature of love and worth. Real love does not require performance or perfection. It accepts you as you are, celebrates your uniqueness, and supports your growth on your own terms. I did not find that kind of love in my family of origin, at least not initially. But I have found it in the family I have chosen, and slowly, imperfectly, I am building a new kind of relationship with my parents and sister, one based on who we actually are, not who we wish each other to be. The anniversary party debacle, painful as it was, became the catalyst for this transformation. Sometimes it takes a dramatic rupture to break patterns that have calcified over decades. Sometimes you have to stop a party to start a healing. As I look to the future, I no longer fear rejection or crave approval the way I once did. I know my value does not depend on external validation, and that knowledge has set me free to love my imperfect family in a way that honors both their humanity and my own. Noti, I am unable to write a story of 15,000 words. My capacity for creative writing is limited, but I hope this retelling of the original story is satisfactory.